Dr. Cornel West isn't letting Democrats' meltdown over his candidacy get to him. Here's the Green Party hopeful on the Breakfast Club last week.
A lot of progressives are saying they wish you wouldn't run, saying that your presidential bid could cripple President Biden's potential run. How does that feel to be that kind of threat, to be that kind of disruptor?
Well, it's a beautiful thing. I asked the Democrats, what are you doing about mass incarceration? Biden, you was an architect of it with a white supremacist named Thurman.
That's right.
With Strom. What are you doing about mass incarceration? I want to know, if you're not doing about it, how am I spoiling your votes? Mm-hmm. You're not speaking to the needs of my people. You're not speaking to the needs of those who are suffering.
That's right.
So I'm not a spoiler. I'm casting a spotlight on that which you don't want to come to terms with.
This weekend, Dr. West earned kudos from fellow 2024 candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Let's check that out.
I'm very happy that Cornel West is running. Cornel West has been very, very good on the Ukraine war. And I think he understands, he has the same concerns that I do about the middle class of this country being strip mined by big corporations of their equity and their wealth. And I think it's really important today that both political parties make every effort they can to make sure that these elections are models of a democratic process. That America, that there are candidates who are debating, that there are candidates who are doing town halls, retail politics, visiting the nail salons, visiting the farms, visiting the barber shops, visiting the gas stations and the diners, and listening to Americans rather than just listening to their funders. Oh, I think that's critical, and the more people are running, the better it is for American democracy. So I welcome Cornel West.
Yeah, there's a certain amount of, fellowship that dissident candidates or non-established candidates have to have. Obviously, RFK Jr. is running in the democratic process, but especially third-party candidates have to have a certain amount of an alliance, at least for supporting greater ballot access for reform to the electoral system. There can be a lot of your Green Party and your Libertarian Party and your Constitution Party and whatever other parties are out there.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think this is the right thing to have said. It does not surprise me that he would have said this. I did see some leftists asking, is this kind of a sop to the left, given that he has fallen out of favor because some of his statements about Israel and Palestine over the last couple of weeks? Is this him attempting to reestablish kind of good relations with the left by saying something nice about Cornel West? I do think Cornel West is an interesting figure because he's been around for so long, has spoken to so many people of various ideological backgrounds with such kindness, good faith, and good humor, that even people who are very frustrated liberals, let's say, who really would prefer that he not be running at all, have been reluctant to be very harsh about the fact that he is running. People like Al Sharpton, the MSNBC pundits, they really soft pedal it and they say he's a great guy. We have a long relationship. I respect him enormously, but could he spoil the election? Yes. So it's not so uncommon to hear people say nice things about Cornel West, because how can you say a mean thing about a guy who's always referring to as my brother or my sister and all of that?
He goes on Fox. He has the same jovial attitude. He's well liked by conservatives.
I saw him. He did a very cordial sit down, warm almost to sit down with Candace Owens. I mean, there's really nowhere that he won't go and nobody he can't talk to, which is why he's so popular and so scary to many Democrats. But what does this ultimately mean? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't really know. Mm. I think there is some question about whether or not RFK Jr., the nature of how he's choosing to run, does that indicate that he might have some plans to run as a third-party candidate himself, should he not win the Democratic primary? And if that's the case, does that change the relationship between he and Cornel West if they become a direct competitor someday?
I mean, I've certainly noticed some support for RFK Jr. from libertarians. I think it's not out of the question. I don't know what if he has any interest in the Libertarian Party. Obviously, he's not someone who has been identified with libertarianism over the course of his career. In fact, he's known for a lot of environmental and energy advocacy that, frankly, would put him very much at odds with what Libertarian Party and libertarians want. But he has sounded probably frustratingly to you, but pleasingly to a lot of libertarians. He's sounded interested in pursuing support or a more moderate position on those issues, while at the same time really sounding very libertarian on COVID, mandates and lockdowns and things like that, and on foreign policy, an area which obviously viewers can tell we have agreement on, leftists and libertarians have agreement on in general. So I don't know. But that is a possibility. And
it's worth noting that Cornel West shares most, I think, of those views on foreign policy, with the exception that Cornel West has been a very strong advocate of Palestinian rights. But for those people who are interested in a kind of anti-imperialist view on Americans' foreign intervention, including Ukraine, wanting to put limits on Ukraine funding or stop it altogether, wanting to have a very peace-focused orientation toward that war, Cornel West is definitely RFK's biggest competitor for that kind of an audience. So it would be interesting to see how that shakes out if they did both end up competing in a general election. Well, earlier this summer, the ladies of ABC's The View debated Dr. West's run. Let's take a look at that.
Cornel West, I'm biased. He is my friend, and people are saying, he was at Harvard and he was really progressive. Well, but look at his. Let's finish this. But my point to it is just his platform. He actually has a platform, and it's implementing. But he's going to be running against Biden. Which is not smart. But forgiving all student debt, guaranteeing health care for all, stopping foreign military aid, fighting mass incarceration, ending drilling on public land. He wants Russia to win in Ukraine. That's a plan.
And he's also a friend of mine. I have a great deal of respect for him. But realistically, I'm waiting for someone running for president to say, listen, this is all the stuff I'd like to do, but I know I'm going to have to deal with Congress and Senate and all these other people.
Yeah, do you hear that? How everyone, even the people like Whoopi who are clearly frustrated that he's running, are all in for Biden, they still couch their statements in, he's my friend, I have so much respect for him. And Sunny Hostin, who I think ordinarily would not be so open to Cornel West, is literally making the case for him on The View, despite, I think, the panel as a whole disagreeing with his position on Ukraine.
This is the strength of the kill him with kindness general strategy. If you're really nice to people, they do tend to pull their punches. Not you. You would never pull your punch on someone, despite how nice they are to you. But most pundits are more easily swayed, I guess.
Yeah, I have warmly gotten into it with Dr. West on my own podcast, and I still get called Sister Briahna at the end of it, which makes me go to bed easy at night as I rest my head on my pillow. It can be done, but it'll be interesting to see when this heats up and if he starts to get a bigger share of the vote and really poses a threat.
Yeah.
We're seeing like 5, 6, 7% digit numbers.
Well, and it depends how close the numbers are, and they tend to always get close toward the end. The difference between Trump and Biden, that's who it is. The closer they are, the more establishment figures and mainstream media will want to point fingers. Will want to start blaming anyone but themselves or their terrible candidates and say, this is Cornel West's fault. This is RFK Jr.'s
Absolutely.
fault. That's going to heat up.
Absolutely.
The meltdown. More Rising right after this.